What's up, guys? Welcome back. And today we have another guest, which is the one Shanahan.
What's up, Joey? Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks for being here again. This is the second time, I
Yeah,
guess.
second time. Yep.
Yeah, second time. How have you been, man? We've already briefly catched up, but I thought this would be valuable to everyone to hear everything. So, what have you been doing lately?
Yeah, since we've talked pretty much a year or two in between our last um, podcast we did,
2 years,
basically been
bro.
doing a lot of writing for other artists,
Hmm.
co-write, just working one-on-one with, basically finishing tracks with them, polishing off, mixing, mastering, tutoring. As you know, the master class we put together, still doing stuff like that. A lot of teaching basically is
Hmm.
keeping me busy because I think there is a niche and kind of a gap in the market and industry of finding the right mentor, finding the right answers that a certain artists are looking for that they can't find on Google and YouTube and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when artists come to me, when I've been around and seen a lot of stuff, the industry change, it's a benefit to them to talk to people that have been in the scene for so long. That's why I really enjoy doing it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so in a nutshell, that's really what's been going on with me. Writing a lot for myself, but not releasing too much, being very picky with releasing
Hmm.
how much, when, and where, and stuff like that. But
Is
that's
it?
really what I've been up to the last few years.
And is that still something you are actively working on your own career, or is it more like a hobby, and you'll see where it ends?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely writing full time for myself. But right now, the thing with writing for others and is definitely taking up more time and more of a it's definitely a passion because I like finishing records for people and just being involved in multiple different songs regardless if my name is on it or not. It's kind of just a producer mentality of just working on music in general is
Yeah.
something that's very appealing to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Shanahan music and stuff like that is I still have a lot out there. I'm riding on records that have still done well on XM radio and Spotify and all that stuff.
Hmm.
So my mentality, once records are still doing pretty good and have traction, I don't like putting a bunch of new records out and kind of just, content is important, but what I'm saying is you don't have to put a million records out every year
Hmm.
if there's still songs that are doing pretty well, is the way I look at it. So
And
so
also,
the Shanahan, the music I'm doing, definitely still doing stuff for myself.
okay. So aside from your own stuff, you're also doing the tutoring and the
Yeah.
courses or the masterclass, and now you're still doing samples as well.
Yeah, so I work as a freelance designer for Cymatics.
Hmm.
As I'm sure everybody watching knows, they're one of the biggest audio resource companies. So I do a lot of designing for them, video work, just content management, stuff like that. They're an incredible team. I can't say enough about them, their leadership and their team that they have. So that's also something I do when they need me to create a lot of sample packs. So that's fun too, because that's something that creates a lot of creative sides as a producer is making sounds from scratch, seeing what songs they're in, hearing it on the radio. Stuff like that's cool, being a sample designer.
Yeah. And is it important to you to have like well, let's just call it different jobs within the music?
Yeah, it's something that really makes getting up every day a kind of the idea of possibilities are endless. I'll put it that way. Like, sure, I have a structure every day. I get up, I have a notepad. I say, okay, I've got client work, this today. But I also have 2 hours of freedom to say, oh, why don't I do this, and this as a freelance? And that's the thing I think a lot of artists, should understand is the opportunities in the music industry to make income, whether it's big or small, it's there. You just have to find the niche and what you're good at and
Hmm.
what value you can bring to a company, to another artist, to a label.
Yeah.
Me and there's 101 things you can do. It's just got to be, you got to look at what value can you bring?
Yeah.
What are you good at that someone else, might not be as good as? You know what I mean?
True. Yeah. Another friend of mine, he's active in the whole commercial industry, and he also approached me like multiple times and said, "Dude, do you happen to know someone who makes commercial music? So just like 30-second, 20 seconds
Right.
songs." I said, "No, not really. Why?" He said, "Dude, there's so much money to be earned in that whole industry because companies, they want to have their own piece of music under the commercial. They
Yeah.
not all companies want to use a famous song or whatever. So if like you, for instance, if there's someone who could make a 20, 30-second song, and let's just say they end up using it, there might be a lot of money involved. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just
That's it.
I'm
That's
just really amazed.
absolutely.
I'm just really amazed about how much options there are. Like how
Yeah.
many options you have as an artist to make money in this industry.
Yeah, that's something too. A great topic that you brought up is like I even compare what you say to Instagram, for example, using that platform to everybody's putting videos, everyone's putting content, and most content is so much better with music. Take, for example, a makeup artist or a fitness model where they're doing a product, something that's like a promo. They would like to use a producer one on one to develop sound for their image and for their video rather than throwing a Calvin Harris song up there, whatever
Yeah.
that's already popular. So
And
that's a huge.
which could get taken down as well.
Exactly. Copyright issues.
Yeah.
And it's a huge market. I write for a lot of small fitness models. I reach out and I don't charge them. I say, let's just do a simple exchange where you shout out my name. I'll get followers from it. You can utilize a 30-second clip that I produced, original, copyright free. It's yours. So if you guys look at the fact of we're talking millions and millions of people on Instagram, so huge. TikTok, same thing, that people need your music. So this brings back to the topic, what value could you bring
Yeah.
to a fitness model, a makeup artist, whatever it is? There's endless things.
So this is interesting. You create 20, 30 seconds samples slash songs, which you give away to influencers.
Yes.
And the only thing you ask in return is that they shout out your name.
Yes, because if you take in effect, for me with building Instagram followers, I'm a major organic builder is the way I would put it, all organic fans. I'm not going out there and buying stuff or anything like that. I'm looking for the best possibilities of how can I give someone with a large fan base something free for me to get a large following back for free, all from organic, real people. So if you do that throughout a month with several people that have 100,000 followers, a million followers, whatever it may be, even less than that is still work. It'll still work out.
Even if it's
And if
10,000.
Yeah, if you kind of look at how that brings value back to your Instagram and more, not only your Instagram, now they're going to your Spotify and whatever it could do, all organic. You know what I mean? That's what people need to look for.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on, because now you're talking about things that you've produced for them, but what do you think about using your own songs to send out for free of use?
Yeah, so I do that also. Going back to like makeup artists, I've had a good amount of success using some of my enhanced music that I would give out. And, just sending out the Spotify link, again, trying to charge people right up front is not going to always work out for people. We're in a market where it's like, if you guys can work together and like I'm saying, free music for in return, a shout out, tagging on the story, whatever it may be, that today is more common and works out better for both sides. If you immediately are sending out an email to an influencer and saying, hey, for $99, I'll do X, Y, Z, I guarantee majority of the time they're going to be turned off. They one, don't really know who you are.
Yeah.
They probably are getting tons of these emails a day. So right off the bat, if you bring value, I think your chances of getting even an answer and or a feature is it's definitely a higher possibility.
Yeah, because as soon as you see a number, you'll be like, okay, fuck off,
Yeah.
At least that's how I work. If I get a lot of those messages from Spotify promotional companies, for example. I'm not even an artist anymore, but somehow they think I am. And I do understand why they have the assumption, though. But I get those messages, and then they're saying like it's this long piece of text on your phone, and it's all the options they offer, including a price. And then I'm like, what the fuck? First, do your research. Second, don't first offer me something before I'm willing to become a client. You know, like I'm not even aware of who you guys are or what you've been doing.
Yeah, that's just it. Like you definitely need to have an open mind where you got to put yourself in the shoes of the person on the other side. What are you trying to sell? What value are you bringing? So that's why I say like start off making a relationship with these people. Even if you don't know them, like do some research on their Instagram. It's all right there. You know, their whole brand and business is right there on their Instagram, their Facebook. Do your research, make your Excel sheets, create your contacts, send your emails out one by one. Be very, formal and kind of, you just got to bring value to them is really what you got to do for it to work.
Yeah, I totally agree. I always tell that to my clients as well, to think about a way to add value to the other person. But you know, those influencers things, like I've only thought about it using your own music, but it's actually a great way to produce some extra stuff as well, which you can just send out for free.
Yeah, because all producers watching right now, we have stuff sitting in a folder that's unreleased, work in progress. We all have that.
Yeah, maybe it's like, even that. Like maybe it's just using the unreleased or the unused folder.
Right, because you also got to think about maybe, we all have a folder that we're like, that record maybe isn't that good. It doesn't fit the market. But that doesn't mean that record needs to collect dust. There's something you can do with everything, something you can present your work in progress. Even if it's a 30-second clip that's strong, and again, you send it to an influencer and like, oh, develop this into a 2-minute, let me make a promo video, perfect. We'll do the shout out. Like I've bumped into plenty of opportunities like that where I've had, music sitting and I'm like, it can work anywhere. You just got to find the market for it.
Yeah.
And I have so many unfinished songs and I'm always looking every day for opportunities online. Where can I still use them? You don't just have to put them out on Spotify. There's still different things you can do.
Yeah, exactly. And on another note, because it's just popped up in my mind, sometimes I get questions from people on my Instagram or whatever, from music producers who are looking for a ghost producer. And they simply don't know where to find a ghost producer, because there's a couple of platforms, I believe, where you can buy tracks. But they are looking to build a relationship with one person, which they can maintain for the upcoming years, you know?
Yeah.
How would you go through that process? Like, how do you get your clients, for example?
Yeah, so I would first start off with I'm definitely a believer in privately working with a producer. I think there's so much value that building a relationship, building a mentorship with someone, and a huge part of having someone write for you or with you is trust. If you're coming to someone, you're obviously in love with their music and what they've done. Someone coming to me, I immediately am like thankful that they've actually come to me, because that means I've done something right with my music online, right?
Yeah.
So it's like when you immediately are looking for someone rather than going on a platform, find someone that you are interested in, you love their brand, you love their music, and you need to build a trust between one another in order for what you guys are going to write, in order for it to succeed. Because, if you guys are butting heads and don't really get on the same page, what's the point? On the flip side, I'm kind of against the whole idea of the platforms that are online. There's a bunch of websites where people can go and $300, grab this, grab that. I'm just not fully into that. I think doing everything privately, one-on-one with your producer is the best move. One, no one knows, the music isn't online. It's not going to be shown until it's released later. No one really knows where it comes from. If you're going on a platform and buying something, it's out there to the public already.
And do you do that by physically being together, or just a Skype session could work as well?
Yeah, just Skype mainly. I've had a few clients where we've done stuff in person. Works out pretty well. I'm more of a writer that I need to have my space, and I need to have I need to get in and out of the studio to get creativity sometimes, and having the pressure of someone else in the room hasn't really been effective for me. It has worked out for other artists. I know a lot of people like doing things in person, duos and stuff like that. That
Mm-hmm.
works out, but I think that's kind of a taste and just a preference thing for
Yeah.
me to do stuff privately, send it to them through email and Skype and catch up. But like I said, if you find the trust and build the partnership, and it almost forms a friendship with your clients, that's when you get the snowball rolling of like a bunch of tracks. We're on the same page. Now they're putting content online. They're seeing a return,
Yeah.
and it just, for me, that's how it's worked for years. I've been doing it about 9 years of co-writing and ghostwriting with clients. And it works out that way for me.
Yeah, makes sense, like you say, that the preference that you have as a producer is important to know. I just really think the way you described it would work way better, because if you approach someone because you tell them that you like what they've been making, it's a different than you just say like, hey, I'm looking for a track, here is $500 and
Yeah.
give me the track.
It doesn't seem, to me, it seems so robotic doing things that way.
Yeah,
And I
less
understand.
emotional.
Yeah, and I understand in 2020, that's where we are. We're online based industry. Yeah, you go and play your tracks live, but for sales and stuff, we're online, we're communicating online. I understand that, but for me to build tracks and build someone's career, I want to talk with them privately. I want to
Yeah.
understand what's your 5-year plan? What are you even doing? Like, do you want to just put one track out and see what happens? People, they need to understand that it takes multiple tracks in order to build a brand. You're not just gonna have that one track hit and then, oh, I made 100,000 off Spotify. Nope, not gonna happen.
No.
So that's why I like chatting too. I want to understand just exactly what you do with artist coaching, sitting down with these artists and say, what's your plan?
Yeah.
And I think the whole platform online, it just doesn't work. And I do want to say I have nothing against ghost producing. Anybody that does that or buys tracks, I am not against that. I know some people are, and I know years ago it was such a huge topic. It's still talked about. Obviously, we're chatting about it, but I am a firm believer in, if you want to get in the scene and you have another skill set and can help with the productions in a way, by all means, get in touch with a producer that you believe in and want to try to work with. There's nothing wrong with it, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, me neither. I just, there's a reason why they call it the music business. It's because it's a business,
Yeah.
So you have to approach it like that as well. If you want to make it your living, as long as it's your hobby, please do whatever the fuck you want,
Right.
and
Right.
don't care about all those marketing and promotion tips that you can get online. But the minute you say that you want to make money with your music, there are certain things that will come on your path as an artist that you should, well, at least become aware of, and second, know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And
It like a lot of people need to understand this is a small business. You're creating a small business. The moment you make that logo and that branding,
yeah,
you're starting your small business plan. So when you create a small business, you have to understand you're going to be investing money, regardless whether it's on a producer or a singer you have to get or on Spotify promotion, whatever it may be.
yeah,
You need to write that off and understand, I want a return on my investment somehow, because you're creating a small business. That's why when you pay a ghost producer, that's part of your business. Like that,
yeah.
that's okay, and that's going to happen. You're going to have a lot of expenses when you start out as an artist.
It depends,
Nothing's free.
Like if you are paying for a ghost producer, that means that your own skill set is located at a different skill.
Right.
Let's say, for example, that you're the king of marketing, for example, but you don't know how to make the product. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Like for example, I may be the best in selling a toothbrush, but I don't know how to build one. So
Yes.
I'm gonna need to hire a manufacturer to build one for me, and then
Exactly.
sell the product, because that's what I know. And I think it's unromantic of how, what's that, romantic, is that the right word?
Yeah.
It's unromantic to think about it like that, because we're talking about a really emotional product. It's not a toothbrush, it's music, it's emotional. and that's why I think most artists don't like to talk about it that much, because it's a sensitive subject. But in the end, you know, if you strap it all down, that's that's what it is. It's a business, and you're talking about a product that you want to sell. And the question is, are you capable of making the product yourself, or do you need a manufacturer for it?
Right. And again, nothing wrong with that. You also need to look at time. You know, time is money. You know, it takes a lot of time to produce by yourself, to release by yourself, to do all the research and to understand where your music is going to do well, release the song, sign to a label. If you're doing that all one-on-one yourself, and me and you know it, we've done it, it is hard. It's a full-time job.
Yep.
And that's why sometimes we're reaching out, getting help, getting a manager, whatever it may be, is okay if you're really at that stage where you know you have a good product, you know you're working with a good producer, you're good at marketing. I'm telling people right now, if they're starting out, you're not going to be able to do it all by yourself, even though you want to. A lot of people are controlling and say, I don't trust anyone with my email list. I don't trust a manager doing XYZ. I understand that, but there's a point in your career that's going to come up where you need to find trust in other people to help you. Because I've been doing this like this now my 21st year. I've had people help me out. I've had the situations where I don't really want to outsource this. I don't want to, I don't want to trust anyone. That's because it's normal. It's your baby. It's your music.
Yeah.
I understand why people get like that, but I'm telling people right now that are starting out, you need to, be open to getting help and working with others.
Yeah. And that's 100% true. You know, I've had it pretty well lately. Like a half year ago, I was at the same point with the business, as in creating content takes a lot of time, as you know. And I'm putting out quite a lot of content, so my time kind of went full with creating content. So I was at the same point as where I was at in my artist career. Like, I need someone to help me with this because I'm getting stacked with just creating content, and I need to focus on other things as well. So then I decided to pick, to hire a freelancer to help me with the content. And in the beginning, it may feel a bit weird because someone else is touching your product, is working on your product.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it really helps because there's so much more time now for me to work on other things, to grow. And that's what happened to me in an artist career as well. Like, I always hated management.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes back to us talking about the small business thing. Is like, there's going to be so many things that come up during your stage as an artist and a producer that you're going to get overwhelmed. You know, we all get stressed out in some way. We all handle it differently. But if you're first starting out and you can kind of work with someone as you're kind of progressing and succeeding, that's going to create a lot of time for you to have freedom and creativity, because there's nothing worse than trying to produce records under pressure, time deadline, all that stuff. And that all can be avoided by working with someone else, maybe getting an intern to help you out, a freelancer, something.
I just wanted to say, like, getting an intern might be the best way to get started because it's cheap. Sometimes it's even free. And especially as an artist, you can hire a freelancer to make them look up all the promotional emails or whatever, or keep up with the Excel forms or whatever you need them to do. But that will clear your schedule to make more music.
Yeah. And I think it's a great angle to do. Like, even if someone's helping out with your website management, your social media management, and you're an artist by yourself, think about how many man hours that gives for you to then get right back in the studio, create 10 tracks a month, whatever it may be. You wouldn't have been able to do that if your intern wasn't helping out, or your friend. Even if it's a friend that you really know is good at marketing, utilize them, whether it's free or $50 a month, whatever you want to agree on. Trust me, it helps. Like, every few hours a day where someone else could be trusted really opens up the possibilities of what you could do as an artist.
Yeah, 100% true. That's what happened in my career as well. Like, all my friends helped me with yeah, we're building everything. Like my brother helped me with building my website. There's another friend who helped me designing all the logos and stuff.
Yep.
And there's one other friend who went on tour with me and who did those things. So I had all my friends backing me up at that time.
Yeah, it's a business. You know, you think about like you have your employees when you're running a business. Same idea for us as an artist. You have your interns or whoever's working for you. That's how the business succeeds. I mean, you look at someone like Tiesto, for example, biggest brand, right? He has 20 plus people doing various different things that own percentages of his career. Without that, you know, these bigger artists, their head would explode. What are you supposed to do with trying to manage 20 things at once? You have to have help, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a small business. You gotta treat it that way.
For some people, it's a big business.
Yeah. It starts small, and it can progress.
Start small. Anyway, interesting. You wanted to go over to some production tips, right?
Yeah. A couple like cool little things I've been working, small things that I think a lot of artists don't imply inside a session. One thing being, I'm a firm believer in bus sending and bus processing. So for any artist not understanding, you take various tracks and you group them into one aux or one bus, and you can do numerous processing to all of them at once. It's basically a easier way to control a large set of sounds into one. So one thing that I like to point out to artists and producers is controlling your reverb and your delay as its own track. So what a lot of people do, say you have a synth, is they'll throw the reverb on that actual channel strip. So I like to tell producers to not do that. I like the main synth sound, whatever it is, to be pretty dry, just whatever that sound is. Do another sound with it to make it bigger, another layer, but then take those two, send it over to the bus, and control your reverb there. Because you need to control the EQ and the spectrum of a reverb and a delay the exact same way you would control it as if a bass line or a synth. You know, a synth rolling off the low end. The same exact thing with reverb. So many producers, when I see their sessions, is you've got a loaded amount of reverb that's creating a lot of low-end rumble in the mid to the low frequencies. It's a huge issue with a mixdown. Because a lot of artists will say, well, why is it muddy? You know, I have this going on. The simplest of thing could be your reverbs, your delays, whatever you may be sending, modulation stuff, whatever it could be. Artists are forgetting that that's creating sound. That's creating space in your EQ. You know what I mean? So I like to tell people you need to utilize bus processing.
I've tried that, using reverbs on your sense, you know, like controlling it with your sense. I just didn't like it, as in somehow I couldn't manage to get the sound that I was looking for. And when I put it on the channel itself, of the synth itself, it kind of sounds better. And I always put an EQ on the end of the channel so that all the low frequencies will be cut out, if necessary, of course. But I somehow never got the... I do understand the theory behind it, and I understand why people would do it. Just personally, for me, I don't like it. It's just... Yeah,
it's also not that easy to balance. It's something that, like, when I'm doing this type of technique, it's something that I have to sit on for an hour to understand literally that thin line of, like, did I take away my reverb too much? Did it lose the energy? This is more of a tip where I'm being really detailed on the mixing side of things. I'm really clean and clear about my mix downs. I like everything really just crystal clear in the mix. So that technique comes down to that. But yes, like you're saying, there is times where sitting on the actual channel strip itself, it'll definitely work. You got to understand that you have to carve that too, though. You have to put an EQ underneath and understand and carve that. So it's up to you. I would tell artists, just experiment with which one works for you. Because as I always say in production, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just techniques that artists need to develop from several different producers and see which one works for them. You got to. That's why there's so many techniques online, masterclass, XYZ. You can't use everybody's technique. There's different ways to approach multiple different things, you know?
True. No rules.
Yep, that's the best way.
No rules. What's the other one?
So I'm big into vocal producing. I do a lot of processing on vocalists. As
That's
we
so
all know,
tough,
like
man.
vocals are almost on every record
Yeah.
nowadays, every other record. So one thing I like to point out to producers when playing with vocals is when you get your vocalist tracks back and they give you dry stems, try to get less stems as possible because when they are tracking their vocals, they're doing 100 different takes to get the best that they want, right? You don't need that as the producer. Your job when you get these stems back is to get their best takes, turn that into a finished product. You know, if you have to do the tuning and anything like that, okay, that might pop up. But you shouldn't have a headache when you get them stems back. I've bumped into this a lot of times working with vocalists is they'll send you the 100 stems back and say, here you go. That's not really a good idea. 9 out of 10 times, I would sit there as the engineer and producer a little bit frustrated,
Yeah.
you know. And so basically, what I'm saying in this tip is communicate with your vocalist before you get the end kind of stems back. Get on the same page. Don't get overwhelmed by the vocals because it just kind of stresses you out seeing all their takes. You know
I've
what I
been
mean?
there. Yeah.
And
Like opening up the
less
file,
is
having
more type
300
thing.
tracks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like I've been there when you receive the file, you open it up and they end up sending like 100 tracks or 200 tracks with all little little tic tacs. Like fuck me, how am I ever going to?
Yeah.
Oh.
It makes for a frustrating project because now you are adding on your 75 audio tracks and instruments and whatever, and you're now looking at the track. You now have to be a vocal producer, which takes time, you know. So what I would say is just get on the same page. I like to tell my vocalists 10 tracks or less. I like saying send your verse with a couple takes, maybe a harmony track where I can pan stuff and play with it, send your chorus, etc. That way, when they really need to sign off on their takes before you get it, because there's nothing worse than spending hours on editing, tuning, getting out all the S's and all that stuff, and then you send it back to them and say, oh, well, I don't really like that take that I sent you. And you're going, well, why did you send it? You know, it's like, because you got to understand how long it takes to do vocal producing, vocal editing. It's a whole different production than your actual instrumental.
Exactly. Like I see them as two different productions, you know.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
The acapella on itself is a production by itself. It has different layers. It has effects on it. It's a whole production by itself. And I've tried it a couple of times, but I thought it was really, really hard to mix a vocal properly. So I always loved getting one file, like one mixed wave file, which I could use. But it's really tough. It's really tough.
I think vocal producing is a craft. You know, anyone that's good at it. Matthew Steeper, for example, is absolutely amazing. He works with Halion. They do amazing tracks, and he does a lot of producing. He does songwriting, the editing. He's a perfect example of doing it all in the background of creating that one acapella that we hear at the end or that final product. I think vocal producing, with songwriting aside, is the hardest thing to creating a track, to finalizing a track. I really do. I think songwriting to start it, meaning, you know, the verse, the lyrics and all that stuff, that's very, very hard to get the image and the message of what you're doing with your song. But actually making vocals sit in a mix correctly, tuned correctly, reverb process, all of that is so difficult.
There are so many subtle details in it which you don't necessarily point out, but as soon as you mute them, you miss them.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's crazy. Like there's this one vocal, I believe it was Katy Perry, that if you listen to the acapella, it's just crazy to hear how many details, like how many layers there actually are playing at the same time, and you don't even notice it. You know, it sounds like one great vocal, but there's like 8 takes in it.
Right. That
That
it's a science. It really
yeah,
is. It comes down to, and that's why there's guys that specifically do that skill set. Goes back to what we talked to
yeah.
in the beginning of the video. That's their job.
Hmm.
And that's why there's vocal producers out there, vocal engineers that only do that because it takes a lot of time. They might not be good at creating tracks, but they're really good at getting that vocal to balance because like we said, it's a whole nother track on its own. It
Yeah,
is a whole different entity than your actual instrumental. And
true.
getting to sit in the mix is another story, you know?
That's
Um, and
another skill
I
set.
can't say how many great records I've heard and I'm sitting there going, the vocal's not sitting right, but it's so good. It could be that extra hour. There's a couple extra hours of working with an engineer that could have made the difference, you
Yeah,
know?
true. Yeah,
Uh,
like outsourcing things to a mixing and mastering engineer is really valuable as well.
I am a huge believer in it.
Yeah, me too.
If anyone's just if you've got a great song and you've got a little budget for it, I would tell anybody to do it because it's going to make the difference, especially today and in the market we're at where vocals are so popular. That could be your difference from signing to a label, getting Spotify placements, getting on a chart, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
It's like the smallest things and changes in your track, and we've all bumped into it, can really make that couple percent difference of
Yeah,
it being, determined as a success.
true.
So I recommend to everybody to outsource, to work with engineers. If you need to work with a company, if you want to work privately, do it because it can definitely make the difference.
Yeah, totally agree on it. Well, was there any other point? Production.
Yeah, one more, just I guess a plug-in tip that
Hmm.
I've would recommend to everyone watching is it's not a newer one, but it's called Track Spacer.
Hmm.
It's something Hardwell pointed out probably 5+ years ago. I forget where everyone was like, "Oh, Hardwell's using it. I gotta go grab it," you know. But it's by Waves Factory, not the main Waves company, but Waves Factory. So what it does is it's basically a 32 band. It's very, very minimal plugin. It looks so basic, which is great. But what you do is it has a side chain on the top where you would use as like a side chain compressor. Same idea. You'd feed a kick in,
Hmm.
you'd dial your settings in. But what it does is it analyzes what you send in through the side chain. So say you send a kick drum in, it analyzes that spectrum of that kick, but it creates a reversed EQ curve. So whatever you're putting this on, say a bass line, it curves the kick out of the bass or whatever you're
Oh wow,
saying so
really?
that those sit perfectly in the mix spectrum wise. So you could do this with
Wow.
layering different synths. You could do this with layering different basses for one bass to not mask the other bass.
Hmm.
And again, the simplest looking plugin. There's like 3 or 4 knobs on the thing for people to figure out. Like it's great.
It's like dummy proof.
Um, so why I want to point that out is because a lot of producers really struggle with mix downs,
Mm.
understanding how elements can sit in the mix and why is this sound masking this sound. Check out Track Spacer because again, simple to use and can really just take space that something else is taking up over the other, and it just curves it out.
Yeah.
It takes it out.
That's a great tip, man, because I think a lot of especially home producers are struggling with especially the low end because the room
Yeah.
where they produce their music in simply isn't built for it. So it's hard to mix the low frequencies. And I think a plugin like this, I've never heard of it, but it sounds great.
Yeah, it's pretty common. I know several producers that use it, but the reason I pointed it out is because I think coming from us trusting our ears is we need to also trust visual insights on the computer, metering tools and stuff like that. And this plugin comes back to that where you can trust it taking what you put into the sidechain and it flips the curve and says, okay, we're going to hollow out what this sound is already taking up in the spectrum.
Yeah.
Multiplying that throughout your session mix wise should, if you're executing correctly, like help your mix down
Yeah.
100%,
I think as a reference, you should always keep your ears as the first reference. But
Yes.
if you simply don't hear it because of your room or whatever reason there is, metering and visualizing really, really helps.
Yeah,
But
that's what I
be the
do.
first one.
Yeah, that's what I do throughout every record I produce is I understand what I'm hearing in the studio, in the car, all my testing and whatnot. But I also want to sit down and kind of mathematically understand visually what's going on. And then you want to combine both to really create that end result in the mix down. Because we as artists bump into so much ear fatigue. We all work 8+ hours in the studio. We all do those late night 4 a.m. sessions, but then we wake up the next day and go, what is this? Like, what is this? You know, that's because you're not trusting visually. You're trusting your ears that are completely trashed, you know?
So do you have like a screen with meters next to it, or?
Yeah, so I have a screen up here. I have two on the side that does the master metering in real time. Just a hardware piece. So I trust all of that. Honestly, I would say higher than I trust my ears. So I'm more of a visual producer right now. I'm getting older. I'm starting to literally, my ears are going to get bad. I'm in my 30s, but that's I'm getting older. So I'm literally starting to trust visual stuff, And there's nothing wrong with that. You got to do both. You got to because that also comes down to the fatigue thing I'm talking about. A lot of producers, I'm going to go buy these 20,000 monitors. I'm going to buy these huge monitors. I'm going to be good to go. No, that's not how it goes. Like, you got to have a specific room. You got to have, really good ears to begin with. That's why I always point out headphones is such a good way to go, regardless of your room, because a lot of people think you got to spend a lot of money to make great songs. I've heard so many people make great songs on laptops, Porter Robinson, right, on small speakers. Like, it goes to visual and understanding what's going on in the metering. You don't need expensive stuff.
Yeah, and knowing your room, knowing your how do you call it? Like, knowing the wrong places in your room. If you know that there's a dip on 50 hertz, you have to deal with it in your mix.
Yeah, and that's something people overlook. You have a small bedroom studio, that's awesome, but like, you can't always rely on that being a good space. Test on headphones, test on different speakers. And I know it's hard to say. A lot of people say, well, what speakers would you recommend? I can't always recommend what speakers to get. I don't know your room. I don't know the size and all that stuff, because all that matters. It really does. So it's hard. You have to just experiment. You have to.
True. Yeah, and that's what keeps coming back. I had a talk with a mastering engineer last week, and he also said the same thing about the room and the speakers, and it's so much into the details that no room is the same, no person is the same. So it's really a personal matter when you want to invest into equipment or software or whatever you're looking for. It's just really personal.
Yeah, just experiment, kind of like go out to stores and see if you can test stuff. But again, that's not in your room. It's, but go out and see, maybe some monitors you like. But I recommend more than not to get a great pair of headphones. I use Bear Dynamic. I've been using that for probably 10 years. And I trust them more than any monitor I've ever used. I really do, because I've worked on high-end monitors. Yeah, it's like, at the end of the day, what I'm hearing in those headphones is going to translate really well everywhere. What I'm hearing in my monitors might not always work, because I'm hearing that in my room right now, So my advice, just really invest in great headphones, guys.
And best thing ever, those are the cheapest investments you can do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
like a pair of headphones, $180.
Yeah, the DT770 Pro I have,
me too.
$150 or so.
Yeah.
I also have the 1990s, which are open back, which are great for mixing and mastering. I think those are about $600, but those are the kind of the final touches to the record that I'll listen on those. But yeah, for an affordable headphone, they're amazing. Like I said, if I can get a track sitting well in those headphones, I know they're going to translate everywhere else. So that's why I say trust headphones more than spending thousands on monitors.
Exactly. Well, it was really nice talking to you again, man. You had some good updates. You had some good insights. And we actually touched quite some nice subjects as well. So yeah, I just want to thank you again for taking the time to do this and spread your knowledge with my audience in this case. Hopefully your audience as well. And let's stay in touch, man.
Perfect. Thanks, Joey. I'm glad to be back, and that was a great session.
Yeah, man. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.